I never thought I'd be the guy to catch his wife cheating on him, especially not during a family event like the rehearsal dinner for her sister's wedding. That night was supposed to be about celebrating love and new beginnings, not about me discovering my own marriage was built on lies. Jessica and I had been together for about 5 years. At first, things were great, fun, passionate, and full of promise. But lately, I'd noticed little things that didn't sit right. She'd be distracted, more irritable, and there were times she'd cancel plans at the last minute, always with some lame excuse about work or feeling exhausted. I brushed it off, thinking maybe she was just stressed with her job or the wedding preparations. Looking back, I see now how naive I was. Jessica always had a way of spinning her stories, making herself look like the victim, convincing me I was overthinking. But I guess deep down I knew something was wrong. Still, I didn't want to be that guy who jumps to conclusions. Not until that night, during the rehearsal dinner when everything changed. We had a big house filled with friends and family, and I was trying to hold everything together, keep the atmosphere light. Jessica, as usual, was being her typical bitchy self, snapping at people, acting like she was above it all. She'd been acting strange all evening, more distant than usual, but I just chalked it up to pre-wedding nerves. Then I went to the bathroom. It's a habit I picked up during the night when I needed a break from the chaos, and that's when I saw her. Jessica, with her sister's fiancé, Mark, in the guest bathroom. The door was slightly ajar and I could hear muffled voices. At first I thought maybe they were just talking friendly, even. But then I caught the sound of their voices changing, more urgent, more desperate. I peeked through the crack and saw them pressed together, lips locked, her hands gripping his shirt. My stomach dropped. My mind raced. I couldn't believe what I was witnessing right there in the guest bathroom of my own house during a dinner I was hosting. I froze, trying to process what I was seeing. They didn't notice me, too wrapped up in each other. Jessica's face was flushed, her hair messy from their frantic kissing. Mark looked just as desperate, hands all over her. It wasn't some innocent flirtation, it was real, raw, and overt. I felt a mix of rage, heartbreak, and utter disbelief. How long had this been going on? Did I mean nothing to her? Did she think I was stupid? I didn't know whether to scream, confront them right then and there, or just walk away and pretend I hadn't seen anything. But I knew I couldn't pretend. That moment changed everything. I backed out slowly, trying to stay calm, though my hands were shaking. I cleaned my face in the sink, took a deep breath, and decided I'd play it smart. I had to figure out what this all meant, how long it had been going on, and what I was going to do with this knowledge. The rest of the night was a blur. I kept thinking about her, about Mark, about what I'd just seen. It was like my mind was trying to catch up with what my eyes had just revealed. I'd been blind to all the signs, and now I felt lost, betrayed, and damn near broken. How could she lie so easily? How could she betray me during her sister's wedding rehearsal? Dinner. The worst part was that I still loved her, but I didn't know if I could trust her anymore. That's the kind of hit to your pride and heart that stays with you forever. The morning after was worse than I expected. I woke up feeling like I'd been hit by a truck, my head pounding, stomach twisted, and my mind replaying what I saw in that bathroom over and over. I couldn't focus on anything. All I could think about was Jessica and Mark, their faces, their lips locked, the way Jessica's hands had been all over him. I kept asking myself if I'd missed the signs, if I'd been blind to her lies all along. The betrayal hit me so hard I almost couldn't breathe. But what tore me up more was the way I felt, this mix of anger, sadness, and disgust that simmered just beneath the surface all day. I knew I had to confront her. There was no way I could keep pretending I didn't see what I saw. I waited until she got home from her sister's place, trying to keep my cool, but my stomach was in knots. When she walked through the door, dressed in her usual bitchy attitude, I could see the flicker of defiance in her eyes before she even said a word. I looked at her and just said, "We need to talk." Her reaction was classic Jessica. She rolled her eyes, scoffing. "Oh, here we go. What now? Are you finally gonna accuse me of something, or are you just trying to ruin my day?" I felt my jaw tighten, trying to hold back the rage. I took a deep breath and told her I knew what she did. Her eyes widened for a second, then she spun around and snapped. "What are you talking about? You're crazy. I didn't do anything. You're just jealous or paranoid as usual." I didn't buy it, not for a second. I told her I saw her with Mark in the guest bathroom, that I'd seen her lips on his, her hands all over him, that I wasn't stupid and I wasn't going to pretend anymore. Her face twisted into this sneering expression, and she started lying, saying I must have misunderstood, that they were just talking, being friendly, that it meant nothing. "You're overreacting like always," she said with that bitchy tone. "You're just insecure. I've told you I don't want to deal with your jealousy anymore." That was when I lost it. I couldn't believe how she was spinning it, how she was trying to make me the crazy one. I didn't care about her excuses or her lies. I told her that I'd seen enough and that I was done. Done with the lies, the cheating, the betrayal. That I couldn't stay married to someone who would do something so disgusting, especially right before her sister's wedding. Her face got all defensive, like she was trying to turn it around on me. "You're just mad because I didn't want to have sex with you last night," she spat. "Maybe if you had been a better lover, I wouldn't have needed to look elsewhere. You're pathetic." That really hit me hard. I realized then that Jessica had been lying to herself just as much as she was lying to me. She didn't even care that I knew. She was just trying to justify her own actions to make herself feel better. I looked her straight in the eyes and told her I was finished. I was done pretending I didn't see her for what she was, a cheating bitch who thought she could get away with anything. I told her I wanted a divorce and that I'd be taking everything. The house, the savings, everything. I wanted her out of my life. She stormed off, crying, calling me names, trying to guilt-trip me into staying. But I didn't care. The damage was done. Inside, I was shattered, but I knew I had to stand my ground. I couldn't let her get away with it. As she was crying and throwing a fit, I just sat there, feeling like my whole world had crumbled. I'd trusted her, loved her, and she'd thrown it all away for a quick fuck with her sister's fiancé. I knew I'd be hurt for a long time, but I promised myself I wouldn't let her see that. I was going to be strong, even if every fiber of my being was screaming to break down. That morning was the start of a new chapter. One I wasn't ready for, but one I had to face. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew I couldn't keep pretending everything was okay. I had to walk away from the woman I loved, because if I stayed, I'd just be letting her continue to betray me, to lie, to manipulate. And I refused to be the fool anymore. After I made the decision to divorce Jessica, everything started moving so fast I could hardly keep up. I contacted a lawyer first thing that morning, and surprisingly, she was pretty cooperative, probably because she knew she'd screwed up big time. Still, Jessica tried every trick in the book to guilt me into staying. She called me a selfish asshole, said I was overreacting, and that I was destroying her happiness because I was insecure. She even tried to spin it like I was the one cheating, which, of course, was a lie, but it was her way of turning the tables. I was numb most of that day, just going through the motions. I packed a bag and moved out that night, staying at a friend's place for a few days. I couldn't trust myself to be alone with her. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her with Mark in that bathroom, her lips on his, her hands gripping him like she wanted to pull him inside her. That image haunted me. I'd spent years building a life with her, and now it felt like all of it was crumbling into nothing. I was angry, betrayed, and I felt so stupid for not seeing the signs earlier. Still, I knew I had to keep it together. I couldn't let her see how much she'd broken me. The divorce process was messy. Jessica tried to drag it out, asking for more than she deserved, throwing accusations, and trying to make me look like the bad guy. But I had proof, screenshots of her messages with Mark, eyewitness accounts from people who saw her leaving Mark's apartment the night before, and little things I'd kept close. The text messages she'd delete, the lingerie she'd bought last month that I never saw her wear. One thing that really pissed me off was her lying about everything. She kept insisting she'd never cheated, that she was just stressed and overwhelmed with the wedding. She called me paranoid, said I was insecure and jealous. She even accused me of spying on her, which I didn't deny. I was desperate to find some truth, some justification for all the pain I felt. But I knew better. I knew she'd lied from the start, and I wasn't going to let her erase what I saw with my own eyes that night. The worst part was how she tried to manipulate me even now. She'd call to cry, to apologize, but it was all the same. Fake tears, fake remorse. I saw through that. I knew she'd probably just do it again if given the chance. That's when I realized I couldn't trust her anymore. Not just because she cheated, but because she was a liar and a manipulator. In the days that followed, I started focusing on myself. I threw myself into work, tried to keep busy, but it was like carrying a heavy weight I couldn't put down. Every song, every memory, every photo I had with her suddenly felt like a stab in the chest. I kept asking myself how I didn't see this coming, how I let her lie to me, take me for a fool. Nights were the worst. I'd lie awake, replaying everything, wishing I could go back and change it all, but knowing I couldn't. One thing I learned through all this is that denial only prolongs the pain. I had to face facts. Jessica was a liar, a cheater, and she clearly didn't care about me. The woman I married was gone, replaced by someone I didn't even recognize, and I was angry at myself for not seeing her true colors sooner. But I also knew I had to stay strong for my own sake. I didn't want to live the rest of my life questioning every move, every word she said. So I made a promise to myself. I'd get through this, even if it killed me. I'd rebuild my life, piece by piece, and someday, I knew I'd be okay again. But right now, I was just trying to breathe, trying to understand how someone I loved so much could betray me so viciously. That was the hardest part, realizing that love wasn't enough, that sometimes people only care about themselves, no matter how much you want to believe in them. The months that followed were a whirlwind of emotions I couldn't quite control. I threw myself into the divorce process, trying to get everything finalized as quickly as possible. Jessica, of course, fought every step of the way, twisting everything she could to make herself look like the victim. She was bitchy, manipulative, throwing tantrums over small things and trying to guilt me into feeling sorry for her. Honestly, it was exhausting, but I stayed firm. I knew deep down she was just trying to keep her hooks in me, trying to pull me back into her web of lies, but I wasn't falling for it anymore. I remember the day I finally got the papers and signed them. It felt like a small victory, but it also left me hollow. I'd lost my wife, my partner, the person I'd trusted with my life. Every night I'd lie awake, thinking about her in Mark's arms, wondering how she could be so callous, so selfish. It was like a punch to the gut every time I remembered that night in the bathroom. I was angry, so furious I could barely keep myself from calling her and unleashing everything I felt. But I knew that wouldn't help. I had to keep my cool, at least until everything was over. One of the hardest parts was dealing with her lies. She kept insisting she never cheated, that it was all some terrible misunderstanding or a stupid mistake. She'd say, "I love you, but..." I was just overwhelmed. Mark was just a rebound, I swear. It was all bullshit. I could see through it. Her words didn't match her actions, not anymore. She was trying to convince herself as much as she was trying to convince me, but I wasn't buying it. I knew she'd been lying to herself for months, maybe longer, about her feelings for Mark. What hurt even more was how she kept trying to manipulate the situation. She call, cry, say she was sorry, that she'd change, like that was supposed to fix everything. But I was starting to see through her fake tears. She was just trying to save her own ass, trying to keep her options open, maybe even hoping I'd take her back. But I wasn't that guy anymore. I'd learned my lesson the hard way. Trust, once broken, is almost impossible to mend. I knew I'd never look at her the same way again. I also started seeing a counselor, trying to process everything. It helped, but some days were worse than others. I'd wake up feeling like I was drowning in regret and anger. I'd think about all the good times, all the plans we made, and then I'd remember her in that bathroom, her lips on Mark's, her hands clutching him like she needed him more than she needed me. That image haunted me, but it also pushed me to move on. I realized I needed to get my life back, to rebuild from this wreckage. One thing I've learned is that people are capable of terrible things when they think no one is watching. Jessica's betrayal showed me that. She was bitchy, manipulative, and so full of herself she thought she could get away with it forever. But I also learned that I couldn't keep living in the past. I had to accept what happened, no matter how painful, and keep moving forward. I started focusing on myself, working out, reconnecting with friends I'd pushed aside, even trying to find new hobbies. It's not perfect, but it's a start. Honestly, I don't know where this road will take me. I don't trust her anymore and I probably never will. But I do know one thing. I deserve better than someone who manipulates, lies, and cheats. I was naive thinking love could fix everything. Turns out, love isn't enough when someone is willing to betray you so coldly. I guess I'm still healing, still trying to figure out how to let go of all this pain. But I'm hopeful that someday I'll find someone who values honesty, loyalty, and respect. Someone who won't betray me like Jessica did. By the time I reached the 5-month mark since the divorce, I thought I'd gotten a grip on things. I'd gone through the worst of it, at least I told myself that. But every now and then, out of nowhere, a memory would hit me like a freight train. I'd be walking down the street or sometimes just lying in bed, and suddenly I'd see her in that bathroom with Mark, her lips pressed against his, her hands gripping him like her life depended on it. Those images refused to fade, and every time I tried to push them away, they came back stronger. It was like some sick part of me was still holding on to her, still waiting for some explanation, some reason why she betrayed me. I started dating again, half-heartedly at first, just trying to distract myself. Honestly, I wasn't ready for anything serious, but I'd go out, meet women, have some drinks, even flirt a little, trying to remind myself that life goes on. But no matter how many dates I went on or how many new faces I saw, the ghost of Jessica lingered. She haunted me in ways I didn't expect. Sometimes I'd catch myself thinking, what if she's still lying? What if this was just a game to her? That paranoia crept into my mind, making it hard to trust anyone new. One day, I ran into Mark at a grocery store. I didn't plan it, but there he was, taller in person than I thought, with that smug grin he always wore. I looked him in the eyes and felt a surge of anger, not just because he'd slept with my wife, but because he'd done it so blatantly, so shamelessly, right in front of everyone. I wanted to punch him, to scream at him, but I kept my cool. Instead, I just nodded, and he did the same. It was a silent acknowledgement of what had happened between us. I was surprised to realize I didn't even want to fight him. I knew that wouldn't fix anything, and honestly, I just felt exhausted. That encounter made me think about how much my life had changed, how Jessica's betrayal had turned everything upside down. I had started questioning everything, even myself. How did I not see it? Why did I stay so blind? I was angry at her for lying, at Mark for being so reckless, and at myself for not catching on sooner. But I also felt a weird sense of relief. I was finally starting to accept that I was better off without her, that I deserved someone who wouldn't cheat, who wouldn't lie to my face. Still, the pain lingered. It wasn't like a switch I could flip overnight. Some days I'd feel okay, strong, capable, even hopeful. Other days I'd get hit by this crushing sadness, like I'd lost a part of myself. I realized I'd built my entire life around her, and now I had to rebuild from scratch. It was terrifying, but also freeing. I hadn't even begun to imagine what my future could look like without her in it. The thing I kept telling myself was that time heals all wounds, even if it doesn't feel that way right now. It's cliché, I know, but it's true. I've learned that you can't force yourself to forget, but you can learn to live with the pain, to let it fade slowly. I started going to therapy more regularly, talking through everything I felt, trying to piece together the mess of emotions inside me. I also began writing more, journaling my thoughts, my frustrations, my hopes. It helped a little. It helped me see that I was more than a betrayed husband. I was someone who had the strength to get through this, even if it didn't seem like it some days. The biggest lesson I've learned is that betrayal cuts deep, but it doesn't have to define you. Jessica's actions showed me what kind of person she was: selfish, manipulative, superficial. I don't regret loving her, but I do regret trusting her blindly. Moving forward, I know I need to be more cautious, more aware, and definitely more respectful of myself. No one deserves to be lied to and used like I was. I'm not perfect, and I still have days where I feel like giving up, but I'm trying to remind myself that I'm worth more than her lies. I have to believe that someday I will find someone who truly values me, someone who won't cheat, won't lie, and will treat me with the respect I deserve. Otherwise, all this pain is just wasted, and I refuse to let her steal any more of my happiness. Looking back now, I realize that the hardest part wasn't losing her, but accepting that I was blindsided for so long. I kept asking myself how she could betray me so blatantly, during something as sacred as her sister's wedding, no less. The betrayal cut deep, so deep that it changed how I see trust, love, and even myself. I used to think I was a good guy, someone who valued honesty and loyalty, but her actions made me question everything I'd believed in. It's like I'd been blindfolded for years, and when I finally took it off, everything was a mess. But I also learned something important through all this. I learned that I am stronger than I thought, that I can survive heartbreak, betrayal, and the complete loss of the person I thought was my forever. I learned that sometimes love isn't enough. People can be selfish, manipulative, and incapable of real loyalty. And that's a hard truth to swallow. I don't blame myself for trusting her. Love makes fools of us all sometimes. But I do blame her for taking that trust and shattering it into pieces. Now, I'm focusing on rebuilding my life from the ground up. I've started dating casually again, not because I want to rush into something new, but because I want to remind myself that life still has joy, even after all the pain. I've also begun investing more in my career and my friendships. I've come to understand that I don't need someone to complete me. I just need to be whole on my own. That realization has given me a sense of peace I didn't have before. Most importantly, I've learned that I shouldn't let anyone make me feel small or unworthy. Jessica's betrayal was a reflection of her own shortcomings, not mine. I was loyal, loving, and faithful, and I still am. I've started to forgive myself for trusting her blindly, and that's a huge step. I'm slowly learning to let go of the anger and bitterness that threaten to consume me. It's not easy, but I know I have to do it to move forward. Today, I'm choosing to see this experience as a painful but necessary chapter in my life. It taught me about resilience, about standing up for myself, and about the importance of knowing my worth. I don't know what the future holds, but I do know I'll never let myself be vulnerable to someone like her again. I'll be cautious, smarter, more aware. Because if there's one thing I've learned, it's that betrayal can come from the most unexpected places, and the only person who truly has your back is yourself. So here I am, still healing, still figuring things out. But I'm also stronger than I was. I've come to accept that some chapters in life end badly, and that's okay. Because every ending makes room for a new beginning. And I believe that someday, I'll find someone who truly values me, who respects me, and who will never betray my trust. Until then, I'll keep moving forward, one day at a time, and hold on to the hope that better days are ahead.